Stellaris wouldn't be Stellaris if patch notes were a thing, especially after the 3.0 update, which some people would consider to be slightly polarizing. Let's dive into the new patch notes, yes, the 3.0.3, because we are actually looking quite good here with the amount of patch notes that we have. We're actually going to go ahead today and take a look at all of this stuff and take a look at what is possible here. Anyway, there's been a couple of updates already that you may or may not have seen. I have, of course, a game in the background here, which you can see. Everything is ready to go. We're going to go and take a look at the patch notes and illustrate where necessary. Anyway, let's dive back into the setup over here. The patch notes 3.3.0 or 3.3. Basically, there's been a bunch of things here. First of all, increased the minimal growth rate of planets near the top of the logistics curve to 10% from 1%. What does this translate to? Well, if we go into our game over here and ignore this over here, this is currently broken. It's the patch, it's on the test version of the game, so don't be too worried about that. Anyway, if we look at a planet, for instance, one that is reasonably full, like this one over here, it's got a current population of 48. I like how this is clickable, even though it doesn't do anything. Always fun when that happens. However, as you can see, if we go to the population curve here, we can see that we have 5.44 pop growth on this planet. As our planet fills up and we get less and less planetary capacity compared to our population, this curve will no longer slow to 1% growth on top of what the base is. So basically, previously you would get a growth rate of 0.3 or something along those lines. That will no longer be the case. That will now be slightly better. So pop growth in general will be pretty darn decent. Then we have a significantly reduced effect of Empire pops on the required growth of new pops from 0.5 to 0.25. That's right here. So this already got changed in the 3.0.1 version of the game. If we go up here to our growth, we will see here that our growth progress is 34.8 to 146.5. And this is based around the bonuses that we get from our population growth. Now, at the launch of 3.0, this number would have been 186. So basically we would have a higher number in terms of our pop growth. However, considering it's now a 0.25 modifier, we actually get less of a malus on pop growth. It would actually be, this is a quarter of what it would be. The base is 100 on pop growth. So this would be a 286 on the base and is now a quarter of that. So that's something for us to keep in mind, because there's a lot of really interesting things that are going on here. And this is still being played around, of course, in the current beta version of the game. You can, of course, once again, try that out on Steam. So a pretty decent change here. Of course, if your system cannot handle this, then you may want to scale that back. But we can talk about that in a upcoming item that we can talk about right here. So, then we have the reduced number of pops required to upgrade your capital to 10, 25, 50 from 10, 40, 80. What does this translate to? Well, if we go back into our game, you will see that our capital world already has a planetary capital on it. If we want to upgrade this, we will require 50 pops. That's the highest possible building type that we can get. However, if we, for instance, go to one of our colonies over here, you see that we only need 10 to upgrade this to our second tier of building. That's a pretty darn decent change. 10 was already the difference there to begin with, but now it has changed to 40 from what it was. So yeah, planetary administration is 10 pops. Then we get the planetary capital that is now 25, I believe, if I quickly need to check here. Yes. Should have been 25, yeah. And then, of course, the next tier, as we've already mentioned, is the System Capital Complex and the Empire Capital Complex, which require 80. So yeah, there's a couple changes here that are actually quite fascinating. Then there's a couple of other things that I sadly don't really have an example for because of the way. Actually, we actually can do this. So we'll just do it like this. Oh, that's the wrong button. I'll actually quickly set up a quick empire over here just to illustrate this because this one is regarding to hive worlds. So hive worlds, for those of you who don't know, is a type of planet that come with hive minds. So what we can quickly do here, let me quickly set up a different origin for us to properly illustrate this. So actually we can probably do this with resource consolidation because it's probably a better choice in terms of our government and ethics. So let's just do it like this. I think that this will be a better way of dealing with things. So let me just quickly remove all of this, and then governing and ethics, yada yada. That is all fine. Traits we do not need to deal with either, and we just go back into the game. So we're loading back in, and as you can see, we are starting off with the artificial network, of course, with resource consolidation. Now, one of the big things here with resource consolidation is obviously we start off with a machine world. It's very pretty. Look at that. It's very machine-like. However, if we go to our population tab over here and we look at our pops, we will get a additional +1 replicator job. Normally this would have been 2 in the current release version of the game, but this has been increased to 3 now here for this particular version of the game, effectively making robots grow significantly faster due to their pop assembly. Pop assembly by itself can be pretty powerful, especially if you get to second tier of machine assembly plants, and it can go pretty ham. But then again, you kind of need to watch out for this and make sure your pop growth is in check, and you want to get those additional replicators to get that up and running. The same applies to hive worlds as well. They will get another bonus of an additional spawning drone job that is being added there as well. So that's a pretty exciting change right there in order to see that. In addition, though, there is a whole slew of other things that we need to take a look at. So, for instance, ConstructorBot Civic now adds an additional building slot. What does that translate to? Well, the building slots, of course, can be gained here in the main thing, and the building slots are attached to the capital building as well as technologies, traditions, etc. So keep that in mind, that robots, especially ConstructorBot Civic, grants an additional building slot, which is pretty nice. It's a nice little addition, and yeah, it kind of boosts robots a little bit, which I think I haven't played too much with robots yet in 3.0, but I hear they're quite powerful, so it's something to keep an eye on. Then there is a very fascinating one. I think this one is actually really cool, and should have a little bit more attention paid to it because it's something that people have been asking for, and it wasn't particularly clear before on how the system actually worked in terms of moving your slaves around. So slave processing plants, which is a special building which we can set up here, is a special building that previously improved slave production as well as reduce their political output. Basically, they would be less inclined to go to factions. However, in the 3.0.1 version of the game, this has now been changed. So if we go to the slave processing plants, I hope that they have them in there you go. The slave processing facility in this particular case, and I will move the thing because I'm clearly in the way. Slave processing output is increased by 5%, which is standard. The political power reduced by 25. That's also exactly the same. However, there is now a automatic resettlement chance of minus 50%. What that means is that slaves will automatically resettle. It's just less likely that it happens. You can, of course, offset this by building the transfer hub down here. The transfer hub, of course, increases that bonus to by 100%, so effectively doubling it, which is rather nice, and it does give a nice little bonus. Then we have the increased duration of the Prosperous Unification plan modifier to 20 years. It was 10 years before, so Prosperous Unification. Do I actually have it running here? No, I do not. Prosperous Unification is the default origin for any empire, essentially. And basically, it allows you to get massive bonuses on planet. This is now reduced to 10 years. What I'm kind of surprised about, however, is they actually haven't done this with something else, which is the colonial spirit, which is very similar to Prosperous Unification, as it gives you a bunch of bonuses, in this case happiness, amenities, resources from jobs, which is a huge deal, habitability plus 10%, effectively making your capital world completely perfect. But that's not been changed here. Maybe later on in the patch notes we will get a bonus there. Espionage related edicts at lowered operation difficulty now have an increase in code breaking. So stuff will still be difficult, but you will have other benefits. So how does code breaking actually work? If we go into our code breaking setup over here in Espionage, do I actually have a spy network up and running somewhere? I would hope so. Let's just attach an envoy here quickly. And basically what it means here is that we can code break a lot easier. So it's a lot easier for us to infiltrate and do our operations. Of course, operations are only available if you have the most recent update with the Menace system as well as the Imperial system, etc. So keep that in mind. There's a couple of things there that have changed when this comes out. Ceramo Steel infrastructure and Durasteel infrastructure technologies now gain a 25% colony development speed. So colonies will develop quicker in general. I do think that is an interesting little change. We can probably take a look here on what that actually translates to. That would be under engineering. I really wish that they would put a search function in here. Durasteel materials, of course, is here, and basically it gives us a bunch of additional bonuses. So yeah, we get a bunch of technologies here. I don't think it's part of this particular chain, but still it gives you an additional bonus in terms of growing your colonies. And you can boost that by 50% in total by using Ceramo Steel infrastructure and Durasteel infrastructure. Replace plus 10 maximum infiltration on Ruthless Competition and Shadow Council with code breaking, so more boosts to spying, basically. So keep that in mind as well. Criminal Syndicate Civic now gives you another code breaking bonus. Reduce the alloy discount of GDF ships to 25%, but added an additional 10% if the resolution is expanded to GDF. So the GDF, it's not something that I think I can show in this particular example. I will try over here if I can quickly dig one up as the Emperor or Custodian. Custodian does it as well. The Custodian and the Emperor have the ability to add these little bonuses through the galactic community, right? So if we are in the galactic community right now and we are currently the galactic custodian, we can go into resolutions. Now previously in the past, what you could do here under custodian reforms, you could do the galactic defense force. So the galactic defense force ship alloy cost was reduced, all ship alloy cost, by I think 50 or 33%, one of the two. But it will now be reduced to 25. However, it synergizes if you expand to the GDF. So you can even, if you are an emperor, you can increase that bonus by another 10%. So it boosts it up to 35%, which is still pretty decent. You know, the galactic institutions are very, very powerful, and you should always try to push those. Hell, we're going to push this right now and just push it through because we can, if it's here. Yeah, well, we can't do an emergency measure, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but still it's something that we want to keep in mind. Oh my god, is that a new icon for prematuring the thing? Oh, that is very, very, very nice. Then there is you can no longer permanently lose your etheroaphasic engine. So one thing that happened before is that if you conquered an enemy system that had a etherophasic engine in it, they would lose the engine. It would be gone, and that is obviously a problem. You can still lose it, but it will just be reset. Previously, it would just be wiped, and it would be bugged forever, and you would no longer be able to do anything with it. Slow down purging by about 50% as we had significantly fewer pops in the game. And now the exception is neutering, which has increased its speed from 500 months per pop to 10 months per pop. So neutering is the slow change in population through changing, basically neutering them. So yeah. But purging has been slowed by about 50% because of the changes, obviously, in pop growth. We can take a quick look at that. We kind of touched upon that earlier as well. Pop growth has been increased in general, which means that there are more pops available, which means purging is a lot less powerful in general, especially... Well, now, especially with the changes of 50% slowdown, but still, it's something we want to keep in the back of our head. If you are becoming the Menace or something along those lines, then obviously that is no longer the case. You now get 4 months worth of their purge output every single time a pop is purged through forced labor processing or chemical processing. So that's a nice little bonus that you can get here as an empire. Purging gives you more bonuses. Otherwise, of course, they will just go through forced labor processing, chemical processing, and will just generate their resources. Slow down first contact investigations by about 50%. So for those of you who are not aware, we can quickly take a look here at some of the first contact stuff that we have up and running in this here save file. I would hope that we've got one right here. Let's not call it Clown Fiesta. Oh yeah, let's blame Martin, but that save file hasn't worked since Niven 2.1.0, so let's not dive too much into that. Yeah, let's just grab this one. So let's hope the save file actually works. It's a fairly heavy one. Basically, what I'm trying to illustrate here is the slowdowns in first contact. I don't think the save file... Oh, there we go. It's a big one, apparently. But yeah, first contact investigations will now take a lot longer. So effectively, you will have to work a lot more to get stuff up and running. Oh, I see why it doesn't work, because it was under the Star Wars mod. Yeah, that will break things quite significantly. Ion cannons, precision beams, and Titan lasers are now considered energy weapons and benefit from repeatable technologies. That's a huge deal. Repeatables onto the XL weapons is a massive, massive deal. That's something you want to keep in mind. Of course, that applies to the following things. If we quickly go to our Titan, which we currently don't have up and running in this file. There we go. So if we, for instance, go to Perdition Beam and we've got repeatables up and running on energy weapons, we will get stack on bonuses on that. Effectively making Titan lasers and ion cannons in particular a lot more powerful. So ion cannons, of course, are not here. They are, of course, under the Titan laser. The ion cannon is part of the defenses, so the ion cannon, of course. So static defenses, Titans, and Perdition Beams in general are just a lot more powerful. Perdition Beams and Titan lasers. Titan lasers? Titan lasers are now considered energy weapons. Titan lasers. Titan lasers are Perdition Beams, as far as I know. Not entirely sure what they're referring to with Titan lasers in this particular case, but it's something that we can explore. Reduction of criminal jobs effective on trade is now down to 5 instead of -10. So it's a slight nerf to criminal megacorps. They are not as effective anymore as they do rely on criminal jobs. So that's something I want to keep in mind. Rogue Servitor's biotrophy buildings now also increase planetary capacity. So that's nice. I think it's one of the few buildings, aside from the standard living buildings, actually, that will give you a bonus like that. So normally you could build a luxury residence, which would increase housing. But housing for Rogue Servitors is now counted towards the planetary capacity, which apparently wasn't something that was there before, which is a little bit curious. You would think they would think to do that. Biotrophies now provide 1 unity, once again, another soft nerve to our good friends, the Rogue Servitors, as previously they had 2. 1% complex drone output instead of 0.25. So instead of getting a lot of unity here, double the unity of what you would get before, instead you get 4 times the output of complex drones. Now, complex drones, for those of you who don't know, are effectively the same thing as specialists for standard empires. So it's your entertainers, your metallurgists, your roboticists, etc., but also your leaders. There's no leader caste for robots, and that's why robots are so easy to play, because A, they don't use consumer goods, but of course rogue servitors do, as well as a whole slew of other things that they don't really need. So on one hand, the unity game for bio trophies is still pretty strong because of the +1 bonus, but still it's a bit of a nerf. But there will be a bigger powerhouse in drone output bonus. So getting more science, getting more alloys, getting more consumer goods, it's reasonable. I wonder why they did this. I think it may have something to do with the pop changes, once again, with the curve, and the unity just got out of control. I think it would be something like that. I would not be surprised about that. Oh, but it only provides any benefits if you're above 50% happiness. That is actually a really big deal. So you will need to keep your pops super happy as a rogue servitor. And this reminds me of some of the older systems, really, because the older systems really had something in place where drones would work better the more bio trophies that were within the system. At least for rogue servitors, from what I can remember from when Synthetic Dawn initially came out. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. I do think that's a very interesting one right there. I don't know if that was the case before. I very rarely play as a rogue servitor. I've been on a binge recently with the Terravores. So yeah, increase the effect of rogue servitor expanding breeding program to 20% from 10%. So rogue servitors basically generate their pops a lot faster, and that is of course their bio trophies. Terminal egress is now a black hole, which cannot be cracked. For those of you who don't know what terminal egress is, if we take a quick look here at the map, it doesn't look like any L gate have opened up, but terminal egress is in the L cluster. It's the entry system. Previously, it was just a standard solar system with a star in it, with a bunch of nanite worlds, and it's now a black hole. I don't know whether or not anything has changed there in terms of its layout. So yeah. Oh, I understand why they did it. Okay. I guess that kind of makes sense. I'm not entirely sure if Starcrackers or Star Eaters destroy gates. I would think they do, because the system does not really allow for anything to survive within the solar system. So it could be that it disables gates as well, which makes sense that they've turned terminal egress into a black hole, because it's the only entryway into the L cluster, and if you destroy that gateway, it's all over. You won't be able to do anything with the L cluster anymore, and anything that's in there is effectively stranded. So yeah, I guess that makes sense if the system works the way I think it does. But yeah, here's that first context stuff that we talked about earlier, by the way, which I went through a Star Wars mod thing. Resolution, extra-dimensional exploration is now again a dangerous resolution, which lets you get the unbidden a little bit early. So for those of you who don't know, if we go into resolutions here, specifically Unchained Knowledge, extra-dimensional experimentation is here as an item, and basically allows you to consume Zero to get additional research. And it also means that the unbidden can show up easier. Of course, you can also use jump drives and stuff like that. But now there's a nice little red text at the bottom. Isn't that great? Just a little bit of red text just to illustrate that, yes, this is, in fact, a bit of dangerous. Medical workers now increase organic pup assembly by 5%. Ooh, okay. Interesting. Wasn't that a lot lower before? And habitability by 2.5%. Okay, so, all right. So, for those of you who may have noticed so far, I haven't actually read through these notes. Gene clinics generate medical workers. Now, if we build a gene clinic and we get medical workers, we can actually instant build this right now. Let's just instant build this one right now, and we will be able to get the right amount of course, I'll lose the building pretty much instantly. So medical workers, where are you? You're under specialists, yeah, medical workers. So they increase amenities, pop growth speed plus 10%. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good. And then it also increases organic pop assembly cost speed by 10%, which is also really good. If you got cloning, this is really, really nice. And then on top of that, increases habitability by 5%. Now, if we increase this to the next tier, to the Cyto Revitalization Centers, we get 2 additional ones, which means that we can get a bonus of 10% habitability, which has serious knock-on effects in terms of happiness, but also increases pop growth speed to 20%, but also organic pop assembly speed to 20% as well. I can see lithoids really being helped by this to a certain degree, especially with cloning. And it feels like a soft boost to the joys of bioengineering, especially the... I kind of want to go over here and take a look here at engineered evolution. Yeah, it does feel like a soft boost to cloning vats, because it does help quite a lot, and it's kind of nice. And synthetic evolution is objectively one of the most powerful ones in the game. But yeah, this is pretty nice. I am kind of happy by that. Significantly reduced upfront energy cost of spy operations. So this is actually a really big deal, and I kind of want to illustrate this wherever possible. If we can do some spying here, dear neighbors of ours, and I'm sure this is going to be possible at this moment in time, yes. So let's say that we want to do an operation, right? If you have the Nemesis expansion, you've got all of these toys available, and they in the past were very expensive. I believe armed privateers was like 4,600 energy before, or something like that as an upfront cost. It's now down to 1,800, which is pretty massive. A lot of these have been rebalanced to make them cheaper and more interesting, because the spice must flow, and you're generally spending energy just to use it, because in the end it's a resource pool, right? And you want to use your resources efficiently, but you also want to make sure it never maxes out. You want to keep on using things, especially if you're playing on higher difficulties or in multiplayer. You want to use your resources as fast as possible, so you can use them on things to get even more resources. That's usually how that works. So yeah, having the upfront cost of espionage operations being reduced is actually a really big deal. Increase the power of star-based reactors. Fully upgrade bastions should be better to actually use all their weapon slots. Oh, that's awkward. So if we go to our system here, and we look at our starbase, and we look at our details, well, in this case, I got dark matter reactors, but the power generation on these is now a lot higher, which means they will always use their slots. Citadels had problems where they would never really use all their slots before, and I'm kind of weirded out by the fact that this has finally been fixed now. But still, it's nice this is the case, because this is not something that you can change. This is not something that you can edit, which is a bit of a shame in a game that's all about, doing your own thing and building your own story. The Paradox, if you are watching, please make this a modifiable layout, maybe in the designer or something like that. But having an additional energy in those buildings is a really big deal. Pops will not automatically resettle away from newly founded colonies until 5 years have passed, so your habitats will no longer have only one worker flee before you can give them something to do. Good point. Especially if you have the ability to fill up a lot of jobs very early on, whether or not you have the a new life bonus or the youth core, which is one of the relics, or any sort of bonuses that gives you additional pops at the start of colonization. They won't flee. Especially with habitats, that's a really big deal, because habitats don't really have jobs in them by default, like the one job. And they can spawn with up to 3 pops if you do it well. So this is something that you want to keep in the back of your head. So no longer would this be a problem anymore, because you should probably build a district or 2 within 5 years, even if it's only to move pops back and forth and may have something for your pops to do. So that is pretty darn interesting. There's a whole bunch of stuff here regarding operations and how maximum infiltration levels goes in and stuff like that. Gathering information operation now gives you +5 maximum infiltration. So how that works is we have to go back into here, into espionage. So gathering information will actually give us additional level, which is up here. If we do this 4 times in a row, we get a stack of 20, which means this will increase to, I want to say, 115. And then, of course, the spy network can slowly grow over time, of course, if we assign a nice little spy master to that. So pretty big deal there. A pretty big deal indeed. Made Menace rewards scale the number of empires within the game. Another big deal here. If we go become the crisis, and if we go to the crisis menu, which is so nicely hidden, these numbers will actually scale based around, under the rewards will scale. So the more empires there are in the game, the less points you will get. The less empire you get in the game, the more points you will get for doing all these things. Of course, the jumps from level to level is still there, but if there's not that much to, you know, purge, assimilate, or destroy, then this process will take a lot longer. So if there's less empires in the game, this game by itself is pretty big, actually, reasonably. It's a mid-sized game. Then you will no longer have that problem. Reduce the number of clerk jobs providing buildings and districts by 40%. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the clerk nerf. The clerk nerf is here, everybody. Oh boy, the clerk nerf is here. So, city districts, 1 clerk job instead of 4, I want to say. Well, it's 2, obviously, but it's because it's by 40%. And if we go into a building that generates clerks, say the commercial zone, now +3 instead of +5. So yeah, not only have clerks significantly been reduced from the game, they do, however, generate more resources. So if we add a clerk here, if we can, oh my god, we got rising unemployment. We can actually prioritize this. They will actually generate more amenities and more trade value, which makes clerks inherently a lot stronger. And this could be a soft boost to mega corporations in general. Considering they do kind of float on that trade value, and especially on the special trade policies that mega corporations get, that could be a huge, huge bonus. Of course, this is from the Trade Federation, not from the wealth gathering system. Crime Lord's deal will now also add additional criminal jobs. So for those of you who don't know, I need to find a nice place here which has crime, if at all possible. Do I even have any crime anyway? No, I've got a completely crimeless empire. So there's a decision which adds a stability. It's getting a deal with crime lords, and it's really, really good. But now it also adds criminal jobs, which of course increases crime, which means that pops will be less happy, etc. In the past, doing a crime lord deal would be like, it's like adding a black site to your station, basically. So essentially, you could just add a deep space black site and it would give you +5 stability. I think the crime lord deal would do the same thing. And basically, it translated to you always want to have at least 1 tick of crime on your worlds in order to get a little bit of crime, so you could get the crime lord deal. That was a little bit of a meta game thing that had been changed there. Manufacturing. Let's take a quick look here. Manufacturing focus buildings are no longer exclusive from one another. Wow. Okay. Whoa. Okay. I was not aware of that. Okay, so let's take a quick look here. So let's take a look at this planet here. So we've got ourselves industrial districts. In 3.0.3, we can build both buildings here, civilian industries and alloy industries. That was not the case in 3.0 before. You could only build one of these on a planet. So let's have those instantly build up. So right now, it gives us a bonus of 2 artisan jobs, right? So if we upgrade this to the next tier, we get +1 job. Increases the base production. Yes, that's all fine. Let's actually just give myself a bunch of resources here. I need strategic resources in this case. Give me a second. Well, we should have enough resources. Oh, the planetary capital. Okay. So if we upgrade this, increases the base production of alloys producing jobs by 2 with a corresponding increase in upkeep. So no longer will industrial districts get a default bonus from gain additional jobs by building one of these. You can, of course, only build one of those. That's a huge step in an opposite direction. It does really feel then that 3.0 was very much a experiment in a certain way, because I really like that change. I really felt that added a lot more. So there's this thing in game design, right? And it's called meaningful decision making. And rolling back to only having these two buildings, and being able to run them at the same time kind of takes away a meaningful decision from the player. If you switch to the Forge world here, do we still have... Yeah, we still have consumer good production. So all of your industrial districts will always generate alloys or consumer goods. You no longer have to specialize your buildings, or at least your planets. That is a huge deal, and I feel it's a step in the wrong direction. I don't think this is a good idea, because I really like the specialization part. Like, I also love the fact that clerics actually have some value now, but I don't agree with this change. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. Probably because of the additional jobs that need to be filled. But then just... Clerics filled up those roles, though. I don't understand. Are players running without consumer goods or something? Because everybody's always focused on alloys? Is that the deal here? Because it gives us additional artisan jobs and stuff like that. Increases the base production of alloys producing jobs by 2. Okay, so it just adds additional output, which by itself is decent. But the amount of workers is not necessarily increased. I don't agree with this change. Not by a long shot. I don't think that's a good idea. Anyway, let's move on back to this one over here. Buildings that increase basic resource production added jobs. Same story. Again, this is such polarizing change. I am not sure if I like this at all. Again, so as I mentioned, there's a principle in game design. It's called depth versus complexity. And it kind of translates to something. There's an expression in the English language which it's basically as wide as an ocean, as deep as a puddle. And the whole idea is to give players the agency to get to make meaningful choices through gameplay. Now, I can understand that for some people it may have been a little bit too complex, because it's not very well communicated to, in any way, shape, or form in the game, how these systems work. It's only in a single tooltip. So it's only in this tooltip. It was, at least, in 3.0 and all the way up to 3.0.2. But wow, they actually rolled it back. That is staggering. That is actually staggering that they did that. I'm actually dumbfounded. They effectively, they simplified a meaningful choice. And this could have been done so... I'm going to need to have a chat with the devs about this, because I don't understand the reasoning behind this at all. I would have made it a completely different change in terms of just signal things better. Because, sure, objectively, it's complex and... well, it's not really complex, it's just hidden. let's move on. We're gonna loop back on this and actually have a chat with the developers about this, because I'm really curious about what the reasoning was. Because from my perspective, it goes against pretty much anything game design related. I'll reduce base automatic resettlement chance to 5% per month. Okay, that means there's a 50% chance per planet per year to resettle. So let's say that you have an unemployed pop on a planet. So core over here has got 4 unemployed pops. Every single year there's a 50% chance accumulatively, or at least predictively, that one of these unemployed pops at the bottom will move to another planet somewhere else on the list. Of course, if we build a transit hub somewhere, then that number gets doubled. So it's 92%. So it's basically a 100% chance that a pop will move. It also means that there is then within 4 years, the unemployed will then move back and forth. But it does mean that jobs will stay empty for a longer period of time. So it's something to keep in mind, and you really want to then increase your transit hub speeds, or at least your unemployment moving speeds. Reduce logistics growth ceiling from 2.0 to 1.5. I don't know what that means. Yeah, sliders have been added in the galactic. Okay. So I actually am going to need to go back to the main menu for this. So let's quickly go back into the game. Let's just grab a random empire. If we go all the way down here, there is a couple of interesting things here called logistic growth ceiling. It now has a little tooltip that actually says what it does. This controls how large the pop growth bonuses are when planets are in the middle of the logistics curve. That doesn't tell me anything as a player, but thank you, Paradox, anyway, because I know what it means. But Joe Gamer won't know what this means at all, so this doesn't communicate very well. Basically, what it means is pop growth will go faster, and pop growth will go brrr, and if you have a crappy PC, then performance is going to be hampered. Same thing for pop growth required scaling, is basically of how many pops you have in your empire. As we said before, it's gone down to 0.5? No, 0.25 actually. And basically this scales up. So the base is at 0.25, and we can crack this all the way up to 1 or to 0 if we want to play pre 3.0 effectively, but we can also set it to 1. So there's a lot of integers here on this. This right here is probably the only way they could have done this and make everybody happy. It's the only way they could have done it, in my opinion, because of the new pop growth system, they would have never been able to balance it properly with so many people and so many different machines and so many performance things. Your system runs slow on late game. Just lower your growth scaling. That's going to be the default. That's going to be the default answer. So yeah, it's not a perfect solution, but I do feel it's the only solution to make everybody happy. Because no longer will people be able to go onto like Reddit or forums or any socials and be like, my game is running so slow. It's like, did you lower your growth ceiling or your growth required scaling? No, then you've got nothing to complain about. What I would like, however, is to can we see that's the default? What I would like, however, is to have a button here that actually optimizes this based on your system settings or system specifications. Now, of course, that requires a lot of code. A lot of games do have something like this built in, of like setting your preferred stuff in terms of video games, etc. So it's something that may be possible and would be an interesting thing to be rolling out to other games as well, especially on the Cloud Switch engine. I don't think it actually exists. But yeah, having the ability to auto-detect this, or at least, go over something and then auto-detect, it's like, oh no, this is not a good idea, it would be nice. So yeah, that's a thing. Let's continue on here, shall we? Performance and stability. It's just stability stuff. So basically performance increases. Every single patch has this stuff. UI, tooltips, not nearly enough stuff here regarding tooltips at all. This should be a gigantic freaking list every single time, because Paradox UI in general is, unless it's Crusader Kings 3 and it has Nista tooltips, no, more tooltips, clear communication on what's going on in the game. I know UX design is hard, but please just explain to people what is going on in your game. AI, it's AI. You know, what are you gonna do? Script files, modding files, bug fixes, organic pop assembly, yeah, error messages, script validation stuff, impossible to repeal the Pax Galactica. It's forever peaceful now, boys and girls. Overall, it's not, there doesn't seem to be all that much here. From what I'm sure there will be people down in the comments below that will be like, ASpec, you've missed like a huge bug fix here. So yeah, fixed contingency world worlds wiped out by Star Eaters not counting as destroyed. That was a problem with the... they probably just took the code there from the Colossi, because that was a problem before as well. So yeah, it's a whole thing. If two countries reach crisis level 5, the galactic community will now correctly declare war on both. Unbidden crisis. Portals will now be destroyed by Star Eaters. Yeah, this is a lot of quality of life stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, but yeah, if you want to try this out, and I highly recommend that you do, go into your... Is that food? That is food. Have I been on camera the entire time with food on my shirt? My God, ASpec, you're such a professional. If you've been playing Stellaris and you want to go and try this out, I do recommend to do so. And also always give feedback on the forums on anything that you disagree with. You can go ahead and click on your Stellaris game. This is, of course, only in Steam. Go to settings. Go to, I think it is betas. I'm not entirely sure here. Let me quickly double check on how to actually get to it. Yeah, go to properties after right-clicking, go to betas, and then on the drop-down there should be Stellaris test version 3.0.3. You click on that, and then the game should be updated, and you can give this a go. Of course, betas will be betas. Final numbers will be final are not final numbers, so anything can change still. But 3.0.3 is, man, I am not agreeing with this economy change at all. That, like, if people were polarized about the whole growth curve thing, Daddy ASpec polarized about this friggin' economy change. I'm gonna need to talk to some people about this because... Oh boy. Anyway, we're going to go and wrap things up here. If you've watched this video all the way down the end here, all 46 minutes of here, you are a hero. And you should probably do so in comments, down in the comments below, saying that patch notes are awesome. And yeah, just type that down there. Patch notes are awesome. I'm counting on you guys. Thank you to my patrons as well for making this video possible. It is a pleasure, as always, for making this sort of content to you guys. And it does really... In the end, it's just a dude reading out a page, but it does, you know, I get some feedback out of it and stuff like that. So let me know what kind of changes you like, what kind of changes you don't like, and then we can take it from there. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. And as always, each other.